Well, Ron Kampeas from the Jewish Telegraphic news agency joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Sir, thank you very much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. We spoke to a Fatah representative a little bit earlier who described the president's speech as a turning point. Did you get that sense when you heard the president address both the Israelis and the Palestinians over the past few days?
I think, yeah, it's a turning point. You know, the first aim of that speech, of this visit, is to gain the trust of the Israelis because of the perception that he somehow fumbled the relationship. You know, however fair or unfair that perception is, that's what he went to Israel with, and that's what he did in the first part of his speech to the students. He reaffirmed the Jewish ties to the land. He spoke about Israeli fears of Iran, and then he pivoted to the Palestinian issue, and he did it in a very emotional way. And if there's a turning point, it's not just in terms of his underscoring the frustrations that Palestinians feel in the West Bank, but it's also in the fact that these were actually the applause lines. Obviously, earlier in the speech, he got applause for recognizing Israeli feelings about the situation, but the fact that he was garnering applause from an Israeli audience when he spoke about Palestinian needs, I think that's a turning point.
I guess it was, we should point out, it was an audience of students, which perhaps would be a slightly easier
That's
audience
right.
To win over. But what about the reaction in the United States to that speech? Because certainly in the Middle East, the perception is that the U.S. is pretty much unconditionally supportive of Israel. I mean, how do you think a lot of his lines, especially about portraying the life of Palestinians, will go down in the U.S.?
I think that there's a lot of nascent sympathy here, at least on the in his party, on the Democratic side of the aisle. And if you look at the pro-Israel community, at the Jewish community here, the reaction so far has been very, very positive. People are calling this a revolutionary speech in terms of its recognition of what the Israelis consider their realities. And you know, there are some organizations that are also praising him for what he said about the Palestinians, some organizations that aren't putting it in their statements. But the fact that it's getting such a positive reception shows that, at least for now, he's created the space both here in the States and in Israel to maybe advance some kind of proposal to get the peace talks back on track. We don't know what that is yet because, as everybody's pointed out, he was long on rhetoric and short on details, but the rhetoric went a long way to paving the way.
Yeah, he actually was pretty honest about the fact that he didn't have a sort of plan or new ideas. This is his second term, of course. He doesn't have to worry about re-election. Again, in the Middle East, a lot of people just want the U.S. to be an honest broker, which they think would mean being a little bit tougher, certainly with this Israeli government. Do you foresee there being American support for this new stance should the president decide to go that way?
I think there is. I mean, I think, you know, what he did, what I realized as I was watching this, is that he created the opportunity for his supporters, for people who back whatever he's going to do, if he gets around to doing it, of course, to run video loops of Israelis, students, but still Israelis, cheering the idea of fairness for the Palestinians. If the right wing, as it's done here in the past, comes at him and says that he's being, you know, too soft on the Palestinians, people are going to be able to say, look, what are you talking about? Here are the Israelis who are cheering these very ideas that you're saying are too far-reaching. So I think in those terms, he has created that space.
Ron Kampeas from the Jewish Telegraphic news agency. Sir, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.